Good to see you.
All right, so I'm going to try to keep your attention looking at some of the technical side of this, and reminds me of the optimist looking at a glass of water says it's half full. The pessimist says it's half empty. The engineer said you designed it wrong. It's twice as big as it needs to be. So that's where I'm coming from. But my point is that these effects are preventable. We can do it. We know how to do it. The DoD has been doing it since the 1960s with the building of the Minuteman system. And I'm going to try to convince you today. And bear with me. I'm a physicist, so I'm going to try to get into some of the technical. But it's not that difficult. Trust me. Okay. All right. So I've got, if I can do this technology here. All right. So we're going to talk about the electric grid. Yeah, good. And I want to talk about the effects and from a technical standpoint and their consequences. We can't protect everything, but it turns out, and Tom Popik's organization, Foundation for Resilient Societies, based here in Nashua, New Hampshire, has done a cost study that shows that this is eminently affordable. And then give you some technical background on how the DoD protects systems, which we can also apply to our civilian systems, and some ideas on where should we go from here, from a physicist standpoint, maybe. All right. So we have these three electromagnetic effects, which have already been introduced: the solar superstorm, the nuclear EMP, and the radio frequency weapons. These portable devices. When you put your coffee cup in the microwave oven and it has a steel or a metal rim, you'll get all kinds of arcs and sparks. Well, what's cooking your coffee there is an electromagnetic field. And the electromagnetic fields are very, very, very powerful. It's the same idea with these effects. Okay? We know that they cause failure of electronic systems. We have evidence from the solar storms that have happened in the past, shut down the entire province of Quebec in 1989, for instance. We know that there are serious cascading effects to all the other critical. Everything rides on power. So you lose the electric power grid, you've lost probably nearly 100% of your other infrastructures. It's best if we take protection approaches that address these collectively. You don't want to do them one by one. Right now we have the electric power industry has decided they'll protect only against the GMD. And even there, the only thing they're doing is really developing some workaround procedures, sort of some hand-waving procedures where the utilities don't have to do anything if they can run their own models and show that they aren't subject to the effects. So what we need to do is to get the utilities to take these much more seriously. And we have a problem, which both Dr. Pry and Ambassador Cooper referred to, that we have an unclear federal lead. So there's a huge premium now on state and local initiatives. Okay. I want to talk about these effects, each of the three effects, and I don't need to dwell on this one because you've seen the chart. But the point is there's a misconception that you need megaton-class strategic weapons that only Russia and China have to cause any kind of appreciable EMP. That is a false conception. And what I'm showing here is a chart of a 10-kiloton entry-level weapon and the fields that would be produced over the northeast corridor. There's an optimum altitude where you get the biggest fields on the ground, and that's about 70 kilometers. And we would essentially shut down the entire northeast corridor with one weapon is the idea there. And the other point I want to make from this chart is that with EMP there are three processes. There is an E1, a fast, very high amplitude, up in the tens of thousands of volts per meter field that's caused by the gamma rays from the weapon. There is a lower amplitude, longer field caused by the neutrons from the weapon. And then there's a very late time, low frequency effect that's caused by the expanding fireball from the nuclear weapon. And that the E3 is very similar to what you get from a solar storm. But the point here is that if you protect our systems against EMP, then you will also have protected them against the solar storm as well, because if you include this protection. Okay. Solar storm gives you a very large earth coverage, late time, low frequency field that covers large parts of the Earth's surface, and it couples only to the long line systems, and that would be the long haul communications as well as the long line portions of the electric power grid. Radio frequency weapons. The environment effects are very similar to the prompt, the high E1 that you saw from the nuclear EMP effects are very, very similar. And so that if we protect against EMP, again, we will have taken care of a large portion of the RF spectrum. This shows you some example devices. You have gigawatt class devices which can affect systems out to several kilometers on the left there, and then the briefcase. You can disguise these as briefcase or even disguise them as laptop computers, and those are kilowatt class and have ranges out to several meters. And then the point and the frequency domain for those of you who are a little more technical, the effects on systems are most pronounced in the 10 megahertz to 10 gigahertz regime. And you can see how that overlaps with the EMP spectrum, the lightning spectrum as well. So, but the EMP spectrum is so broad, it covers a lot of the RF weapon spectrum as well. And this chart is a little busy, but just to compare the effects, and note that the late time, the solar storm, and the late time EMP only affect long line systems, long line power lines, long line transmission lines from long haul communication systems. The E1 is much more ubiquitous in its effects, as are the RF weapons. And when you have systems that are self-contained and self-powered, those systems are much more likely to survive everything but the RF weapons. The RF weapons can be used to take out the small self-powered systems. Now, the thing that we are very much concerned about, in fact, there have been several reports by the President's National Security Telecommunications Advisory Committee, it's referred to as the NSTAC, that have warned us about long-term outages, and they define it as a phenomena that cause the interruption of electricity for months to years over large geographic regions. And there's a lot of different causes, and among them these electromagnetic effects, as well as cyber attacks and physical attacks. And they're very concerned about the lack of awareness and preparedness. If you have these long-term blackouts in the absence of planning, these are existential threats. And there's not only are the systems out, but it's very difficult to recover. During Hurricane Sandy, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, found that the first thing they needed to restore was electric power. Okay, and without electric power, they were dead in the water. And I've seen several briefings to that with that conclusion from the emergency responders. We need survivable power sources in order to black start the grid, bring the grid up from a dead blackout. And also the emergency life support services are very important, and to be able to reconstitute the critical infrastructures. Protection of the electric power plants is very important, especially for the black start. Certain of our electric plants are designated black start resources, and those are the ones we need to focus on. Okay. And I actually have a chart of your blackout history there in New Hampshire. Looks like the southern part of the state is much more often affected by blackouts. So we can't protect everything. And there's a list here, of priority list. Most important is to protect the communication and control centers, so we have situational awareness, and then the black start generation plants. Okay. All right. And then you can read down the list down to the local distribution networks. All right, so let me flip through, the next charts just look at the technical aspects of the protection approach by producing, installing barriers in systems to limit and shield against these effects. And this is the way the DoD does it, and it works. For communication systems, the barrier is the external shield. You can also isolate your electronics and put them in smaller closets. The black start generation plants, we know how to protect those as well. Nuclear plants, they can be a problem because they are, as Ambassador Cooper says, they're shut down, but we can protect them as well and have them available as black start resources. And also we need to protect them to avoid Fukushima-type situations. The grid itself, we know how to protect the big transformers that tend to burn out with grid blocking devices on the top right, and then overvoltage protection for the fast EMP, the E1. Here's some pictures of barriers that we use for comm systems and process control systems. The industry is trying to waffle on this just by implementing operational procedures. I'm not going to read this, but there are a lot of reasons we know that the operational procedures will not work. We have to have physical protection in order to survive. And then just some conclusions. I think I've made all these points. I will emphasize that there's a premium on federal, state, and local government and public-private partnership in order to get this done. And public awareness is very important. That's why I'm so pleased. Just thank you, Frank, for allowing me to speak. Public awareness is one of the big objective in when I talk. And then there's some ideas for actions we can take. It's not I think it's a win-win situation both for the government and the electric power industry, and that's a point I want to drive home. If we have the proper legislation and the industry is able to recoup their costs, and as I say, Tom Popick, I hope he'll talk about it, but the costs are very reasonable, especially if they're amortized over 20 years, that we can protect the grid, and I think we can get the power companies to work with us. And also, we need standards, and we need a national coordinated black start plan. That doesn't exist in our country. It does exist in the European countries have them, but the U.S. has no national black start plan. So we need that. So I'll stop now.